Welcome back to Rare Elvis Photos. Got this little surprise in the mail. It's not really a surprise, but this is the books from Billy Stanley. Now I say books because not only did our winner get a autographed copy, but let me see if I can find that one. All right, right here, The Faith of Elvis. I'm going to be shipping this out to our winner. To Sherry Lynn, right here, best wishes. But Billy sent another book that eventually, when we get to the end of The Faith of the Elvis, The Faith of Elvis, we're going to give that one away. Now that one's, it says best wishes, TCB Billy. So somebody will get that too, okay? So Sherry Lynn, congratulations. I will ship that out Monday to you. Yeah, just nice to see it in the mail today. I know Billy got on it right away. And, you know, I'm doing a video tonight. Excuse me. Somebody asked me if I was going to read any more Child Bride. And yes, I have kind of slowed down on that, haven't I? There's a lot of books that we've been reading. But, yeah, we're in the middle of the book, right? So we need to add some more readings of this. And I want to hear what y'all have to think about it, of course. Sorry, it's one I'm getting allergies. I think my whole family's got a little something. Don't feel bad. Don't feel bad at all. Just, you know, that feeling in there. All right, so let's go ahead and, okay, so the $200 that Paul Bobblehead had given her quickly dwindled, leaving Priscilla. Actually, before I start reading this, a reminder. Tomorrow, I'm going to be releasing the conversation with Michael Peterson. Now, I hope y'all give him a lot of love. Hope you watch it to the very end. He is an amazing person, an amazing singer, songwriter. Not just that, he's had a very, he's had a life experience that I think a lot of y'all will relate to. And I'll be having several conversations with him. And I believe we're probably going to be able to bring on Norbert Putman as well at some point in time. He did express an interest to come on the channel through Michael. Michael and Norbert are friends. Now, Norbert lives pretty close to me. I think I'm about 45, 50 miles from him. So maybe we'll do it in person instead of Zoom. Who knows? Who knows how that's going to shake down. But, all right. So this chapter, we're talking about how Priscilla kind of went through her money, and she didn't really have a whole lot of money, and she was very uncomfortable asking Vernon for money. The $200 Paul Bobblehead had given her quickly dwindled, leaving Priscilla in the awkward and humiliating circumstances of having to ask Elvis's father, who controlled the finances, for money to live on. Though Priscilla, by everyone's account, was extremely conservative about spending, Vernon Presley, in Joan Esposito's description, was tight. I would not want to have to ask him for money. What did you do, he would demand. Well, I had 3 milkshakes. Neither Paul Bobblehead nor Elvis had provided an allowance for Priscilla. Now, Captain Bobblehead likely assumed that the money would not be an issue since Elvis Presley was a millionaire. And Elvis didn't think about those things, Joe Esposito explained. And we're talking 1960, 63-ish, 63, 64. You know, interesting. Joe Esposito explained, Elvis never thought about money. I'm sure that Priscilla had a hard time being young, like, I need money. What do I do? So she had to go to Vernon. Now, he didn't make it easy for you to ask him for money. He seemed to make it like you were taking his last dollar. Elvis was thinking that she should have a line like a credit card in her wallet, and she should have an allowance. Oh, sorry. It says Elvis wasn't thinking. According to Joe Esposito, Elvis wasn't thinking that she should have a credit card in her wallet. She should have an allowance every week. So I don't know. I don't really know whether Priscilla had an allowance every week, because I don't think Priscilla ever cleared that up. His father could be brutal, Priscilla admitted later, but he was good to me. Vernon's second wife, Dee, on the other hand, vexed Priscilla considerably. If I wore an extravagant dress, I was criticized on how much I had spent for that dress, you know? Was I going to be like another girlfriend who was extravagant? Now, Priscilla was feeling constricted her first days at Graceland. Joe Esposito did not recall that anyone actually forbade her to bring friends to the house, as long as the timing was right. But he admitted that she was a prisoner as far as leaving the family not knowing where she was. That wasn't good. We didn't have cell phones in those days. Anyway, the reality was that Priscilla had no friends in Memphis, and she was not permitted to leave the grounds of Graceland without one of the entourage. There was a rationale behind this. Elvis, who had played the celebrity game for 7 years, was wary of opportunists seeking access to him by pretending to befriend Priscilla. He wanted to protect her and to keep her under surveillance whenever she left the house. The resulting lifestyle for Priscilla was akin to being a daughter of a Saudi sheikh, pampered and sequestered, living behind a metaphorical veil. My friends were chosen for me, she recalled. They were the wives of the husbands in Elvis's group. Never could I bring in an outsider. I didn't bring anyone in. It was made very clear to me that I was not to encourage outsiders to come in when I first got there. So when I first got there, okay. Her sharp, now, once again, I'm reading this book. Suzanne Finstead was not a fan of Elvis, you know. She's just not. She's been a fan of Elvis. She wrote this book to try to learn more about Priscilla, and then found out that Priscilla was very duplicitous and very, she had more to her than she had even imagined. So her sharpest critic, according to Priscilla, was not Elvis, but Dee, Vernon's second wife. I was so young, Priscilla later reflected, so naive. I had a picnic out in front of Graceland. Now, there was a big oak tree, a beautiful oak tree, and I took my dog up there. I had a picnic, an innocent picnic. Well, I was criticized for trying to make a spectacle of myself and show people on the streets that I was there at Graceland, for calling attention to myself. I couldn't believe this. I was having a picnic with my dog, never ever thinking that I wanted to be seen on the street. Now, the incident left emotional scars on Priscilla, who had to be reared to be dutiful, to please, and who was doing everything in her power to blend into a strange new world. I was picked apart, so what did I do? I chose a tree way in the back part of Graceland, and I stayed there, because I didn't want people to criticize me. So I came down to their level. What does that mean? I came down to their level. Was she picking them apart after that? Or did she think she was at such a high level of status that she had to come down to be normal like them? I don't know. It's kind of written kind of strange. I don't exactly know what that means. Okay. Priscilla said, now keep in mind, Priscilla sat down and talked to Suzanne. You know, she went there, she did that stress analyzer test with Curry Grant. So some of these things are things that we haven't really read in other books. All right, so she said, I felt anger for that because I fell into the trap, not being prepared. Those were the kind of things that I was approached on, and Dee would do that to me, you know. You shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. Priscilla felt increasingly persecuted, and her reaction was to become invisible. I was so criticized for every little thing that I did that I withdrew, thinking that everything I did was wrong. Dee Presley's characterized Elvis's household as cautious, determined to contain a potentially explosive situation. So Vernon lived in fear because there was a child living in Graceland, she declared. She could surely get pregnant or the news would pick up on it. She could surely get pregnant. Oh, that was fear. She could surely get pregnant or the news would pick up on it. And it would look like Jerry Lee Lewis. Actually, Priscilla was hidden inside Graceland for a lot of years. So that's Dee talking about Priscilla's experience. And I don't know, that could be in a book, maybe one of the books that she wrote. Ignorance and romanticism later painted over the reality, creating the fable that the teenage Priscilla Bobblehead was living at Graceland in a grand love affair with Elvis. When the more bittersweet truth was that she was a confused child, driven by her parents' ambition and her own fading fantasy. Now let's remember that Priscilla was attracted to the wild guys. You know, the guys in the leather jackets, the guys that were smoking and drinking, the older guys when she was younger. That's who she was really attracted to. And of course, that's the personification that Elvis put out there in the early days, right? He was the rebel. The parents didn't want you to be around Elvis. He would corrupt you. And that's not the Elvis. That was the real Elvis. That was just the act, right? So, her own fading fantasy. Elvis returned home from the set of Fun in Acapulco a few days after Priscilla arrived at Graceland, and the fairy tale patina of her surprisingly, seemingly charmed life reemerged, albeit briefly. Well, I remember he took her shopping in Memphis, and he bought her like $100 blouse, like 10 of them, said Joan Esposito, and this was like, gosh, her eyes got this big. Now, Priscilla had entered a different world that spring, the world of the nouveau riches. Elvis, in contrast to Dee, never criticized Priscilla's spending. Never, she emphasized. He wanted me to look great. So here's the truth of the matter. Vernon Presley was so tight with the money and so scared that he was going to lose everything, that Elvis was going to lose everything, and then in turn, Vernon would lose everything, that I'm sure that those fears went into Dee. He might even have said, you make sure you tell that little girl not to spend money, not to spend, because Elvis's generosity knew no bounds. So I think Elvis probably assumed that Priscilla had as much money as she needed, or that she didn't really even need much, because all the food was there. Anything she wanted, if she wanted a milkshake, they would make it. But, you kind of like, I can see if she's there at Graceland and she hasn't made friends. And I don't think it was Elvis that told her not to make friends. I think it was some of the people around, right? Probably could have been Vernon very much. He was scared this was going to turn into Jerry Lee Lewis. The Memphis Mafia, the wives, they were probably all told, hey, you tell her, don't bring anybody around here. We don't want the publicity in the media. So I just want to point that out. Suzanne's not an Elvis fan, or wasn't an Elvis fan when she wrote this book. And it certainly does not take a kind eye to Elvis with that. And I'm just talking about how I perceive it. On April Fool's Day, Elvis surprised Priscilla with a Revlon red Corvair wrapped in a giant satin ribbon and tied with a bow. She was all excited about it, recalled classmate Ann Dickey, who watched in amazement with the other icy girls, the Incarnate Catholic School, I think it was called, as Priscilla drove up to campus in her new Chevrolet. Now, the car was a particular thrill for Priscilla, who was embarrassed at being driven to school by Vernon or Dee, and longed for the independence and relative anonymity of her own transportation. Because, gosh, she was 18, or very near 18 at that point. Her classmates all knew the Chevrolet was a gift from Elvis, but Priscilla kept up the pretense of her fabricated lifestyle with reporters from the Memphis Press Scimitar, who turned up in the school parking lot that morning. When they asked who bought her the Corvair, Priscilla responded with a publicist's skill of evasion, saying, "It's my car." The resulting puff piece in the paper, Priscilla arrives in her bright red new auto, put a wholesome spin on a story that for any star other than Elvis Presley would have meant anything certain of a scandal. The National Wire Services picked up the Scimitar piece and its innocent nuance, reporting that Vernon Presley had flown 19-year-old Priscilla Bobblehead from Germany to complete her schooling as a guest of Vernon and his wife. As before, the story died there. Rona Barrett, one of the more famous gossip columnists, acknowledged that they all knew that Elvis was hiding a teenage girl at Graceland. And I gotta say there, look, she wasn't 18, right? She was a month or two away from 18. They're using this teenage girl thing, and 18 is 18. That's still young, right? Especially nowadays. When we look at it in 2024, let's just say I had a 17-year-old daughter or an 18-year-old daughter, which I don't, thank God. I don't have the stress of that, right? And some of y'all do. The thing is, Elvis was what? At that point in time, he was 10 years older than her, I believe. So 27, 28. I get it. but here's the deal. All of the columnists, the gossip columnists, the media, they loved Elvis because they knew Elvis was a good, kind, loving person. And so they would think, okay, well, this must be something. Maybe there's something serious. And for all of us fans that don't like Priscilla, there was something there. Now, whether it was because she reminded Elvis of Lucy, like, we're reading the Are You Lonesome Tonight book, or whether it was because, she reminded Elvis of Gladys. We'll never know. I mean, we'll never really truly know, but we do know that he surely didn't marry her right away. But he also didn't kick her out of Graceland. So we have to give Priscilla that part of it. Now, I know that I've been reading this book. We've been talking about this series forever. Even prior to reading this book, I had this series where I was kind of reading it out of not an audio book, but out of an online book, and talking about it, and talking about Curry Grant and all the photos that Curry took of Priscilla in '61. And Curry saying that she traded out her physical gift, whatever, I have to be careful with the words I say. So don't act like I'm saying something that's macho or sexist or whatever. That she traded physical favors, let's just say that, to meet Elvis. But whatever she did worked. Whatever the parents did worked somewhat. Did Elvis keep her there because he was fearful of the scandal? Maybe. He might have. It might have been not that he loved her or that he was enchanted with her. Maybe it was fear that kept Priscilla there. Marriage certainly didn't last, did it? And she ran away, had her affair almost immediately after marriage. And maybe before. I mean, we don't know. But one thing we do know is that she went to an all-girls school for the final 2 months, so her parents didn't trust her around guys. She was already hopping from one guy to another, hopping on one, hopping on another, hopping on another, back there, and they shipped her to the States to Elvis before graduation to make sure she didn't get pregnant. All right, here we go. So the media, they knew that Elvis was hiding a teenage girl at Graceland. But she went no further with the story because it was beyond anybody's comprehension that the singer was actually keeping Priscilla Bobblehead as his plaything. At that time, there were too many writers who were from the old world who would never even think twice that Elvis would have an affair with a third. First off, she wasn't the number 1 and 3 together. So the reason there was never a Jerry Lee Lewis type scandal, the columnist suggested, was that Jerry Lee and Elvis were very different people. Jerry Lee Lewis always had a public persona of being a wild, crazy, nutty, fruitcakey kind of guy. Elvis never had that image. Yes, he did. He had that image from 54, 55, 56. But then again, he did change it when he came back. But they protected that image, the sweet, southern, gentle fellow. And he really was that. I think, but more along the lines of 1960 and later, after he got back from the military service. So that doesn't quite, I guess it does match up the time of this, because we're talking 63 when the media was getting a hold of this, and they protected Elvis. Elvis and his image makers invented the fable that Vernon and Dee were old friends of the Bobbleheads. The press accepted it, and Priscilla learned from that experience how to manipulate the media and the public, a lesson that would serve her well when she began her own reconfiguration of the truth. Now, Dee Presley remembers that Priscilla seemed detached from the Bobbleheads, who she says very seldom called. This was an odd behavior in parents who claimed to have sent Priscilla to Graceland under duress. I don't think Elvis felt comfortable around Priscilla's parents, remarked Dee. None of the teachers or students at Immaculate Conception remembered Priscilla talking about her family or saying that she missed them. Sister Mary Adrian, the principal, admitted that it later surprised her that the Bobbleheads never inquired about the daughter's progress or her adjustment to Immaculate Conception, which some people say Immaculate Conception is what happened when 9 months after Elvis wed Priscilla, they had Lisa. That it had to be immaculate. I mean, is it possible that she got pregnant on the wedding night? I guess it is. But we all know that gestation is longer than that. You know, I would give a good reason, right? For why the sudden marriage. Why people like Red were cut out of the wedding. People that were close to Elvis at the time. Very close. So yeah. Their apathy cast even more doubt on Priscilla's later claim that it was a selection of good Catholic girls' school that convinced her parents to send her to live with Elvis. Jamie Lindbergh was convinced then. Now, Jamie Lindbergh is the boyfriend of Priscilla. Was convinced then and years later that Priscilla was the innocent victim of a well-intended mother with delusions of grandeur for her beautiful daughter. And I'm sure Priscilla ended up there out of her element, he asserted. I'm sure that was the main difficulty, and I'm sure that she never had a chance to really grow up. So that's interesting. So he thought well enough of Priscilla back then. And that's very kind of Jamie Lindbergh, because he was kind of scorned. You know, he was dropped like a hot potato, and she moved over to the States, and she was with Elvis. I kind of wonder whether he's still around. Maybe I could get him on the show and learn more. But it seems like he really likes Priscilla, or liked Priscilla, and gave her the benefit of the doubt. I wonder what he thinks now. I'm just curious. Anyhow, I did promise somebody that asked me if I was ever going to read Child Bride again that I would do an episode tonight. So it's family weekend, but I still wanted to take a moment out and read y'all 20 minutes or so of the book. And remember, tomorrow, Michael Peterson. It'll be on the channel, okay? And please give him a lot of love. Try to set a record and watch as much of the video as possible, because there's interesting stuff all the way throughout this video with Michael. And I'd like to have him back on the channel, and I'd like him to feel love. Phenomenal singer. We're going to have other country singers like Craig Campbell on the channel in 2025. Maybe even my friends Thompson Square. Keith and I were roommates together back in the early days. I was there when he met Shauna, his wife, his lovely wife, whose talent she is. She just got a record deal with Sun Records, a solo deal. So we could talk about that as well. But both Keith and Shauna were influenced by Elvis and love Elvis. So that's a good little tie-in for the channel. Then, of course, Norbert Putman. I'll be looking at a few other surprise guests, too, in 2025 to go along with all the guests we already have. So y'all are making this possible, and I appreciate it. I appreciate each and every one of you. And I apologize if I don't get rid of some of the naysayers, the lollipop kids, quick enough. If they've got questions, that's a doubter. I'm fine with people that have questions. But if I start seeing you get attacked, they get removed, okay? But the good thing is that new subscribers replace the lollipop kids. So we're good here at Rare Elvis Photos. TCB TLC, till next time, take care. Thank you so much.